In part one of my interview with Will Robbins, what we go through is how to structure your Leaving Cert study and his best tips on study skills, his little hacks that he used in order to achieve the grade that he got. And my favourite part was where he actually goes through the 4 principles of learning and tells us how to go ahead and use them towards a better grade. Let us know what your favourite part was down below. Hope you enjoy. Hello and welcome, Will. Thanks so much for joining us again via Zoom and agreeing to take all your fantastic ideas that we had yesterday on Instagram and a little bit more and really add value to the people listening to this. So first of all, thanks for stepping up and giving back and helping people out, and I'm sure people are definitely going to massively appreciate it.
Not at all. Yeah, sorry for running off on you over Instagram a few times there.
That's okay, mate. It's okay. I wouldn't worry about it. It's great to have this down as like in a proper literal sense here in terms of what we are like. It's basically there for students now. It's going to be saved, uploaded, so they can look at it again and again and again versus the Instagram stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to get into the questions because I want this to be filled with you speaking about your value and the stuff that you are absolutely fantastic at. So, first thing I want to ask you is, what would you do? What would you do if you were a student in a situation in 6th year right now? What would you do?
Right now, I suppose everyone's in the same boat, which is the good thing. So, everyone's stuck at home. So it really comes down to who's willing to kind of put in the work and not get distracted by this whole coronavirus thing. I suppose we have April, May. We've a good 2 months left. So that's plenty of time, I think, and that's when you're going to get most of your work done. So if you're a little bit behind, don't worry. Just obviously get going as soon as you can. But yeah, in terms of that's the kind of the macro, the broad view. But it's an important skill you're developing now, being able to do self-directed learning. It's probably more realistic. And there's a good quote from a guy called Alvin Toffler, who basically says the illiterate of the 21st century will be those who who are unable to learn, and because the world's changing so fast. So being able to do self-directed learning is a really good muscle to be flexing right now, rather than just being taught to in school.
Yeah, 100%. Being able to learn. I'm actually taking that down there. It's a tool for the new age. Tell me this: what would you say? What would you say, being fresh out of school? What would you say are the pitfalls people are finding at the moment in terms of being out of school?
In college?
No. So say if you're in 6th year, what would students be feeling, and how could they potentially fix that?
I suppose for people who like structure, there is a bit of something missing and a lack of structure today, and it's not much direction coming. I suppose I know some teachers are doing a great job providing content and stuff to do, but it's probably a lot more responsibility for students to shoulder than they have done before. So yeah, I guess that's what they're feeling, and the important thing is just to take control and get some kind of semblance of structure in your life, and some kind of plan, and you'll be good to go.
How could a student plan their day? Like, what would you have done in 6th year to plan your day?
Yeah, well, first of all, I do want to preface all this, and a lot of people are probably wondering why you keep having this guy on. There are a lot of people that probably did a lot better. I didn't get 65 or anything, but I do kind of think about this stuff a lot. And I don't want to be too prescriptive with telling people what to do, but just gonna offer a few ideas. I think getting up early, I know it's not for everyone, but it is one of those kind of keystone habits that when you're up early, you have more time to yourself in the morning where there's less distractions. And it's a really good time to instill some good habits in there. So I think getting up early is definitely beneficial, or at least getting up at a set time every day. But I really think like the ideal day starts the night before. So that kind of means, shutting off for a little time before bed. If it's like leaving your phone outside the room, turning off the laptop at a certain time every night, and saying, mission complete, or that, like, that's done for the day, and not going back to it, and keeping that promise to yourself. And then, yeah, getting a good night's sleep, because sleep is literally the key to like having information stay in your brain. There's a lot of studies on it. Of course, I'm not an expert, but there's a really good book, Why We Sleep, by Matthew Walker. He was on Joe Rogan podcast, but again, in this course I did, Learning How to Learn, it's basically saying that when you sleep, all the information that you've been learning throughout the day is like the neurons their connection is strengthening, and everything is just kind of getting cemented from your working memory into your long-term memory. And then as well, you'll have more energy to go at the learning the next day. So sleep is definitely not something to put back on. I'm saying this, but like, this is probably one of the worst things I do. Like, I'm not a good man for getting the sleep in. It's tricky, but it should be a priority.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I just wanted to touch on a couple of things you said there. First of all, when you're saying why do we have you on? Because I think it's because the reason we have you on is because you've demonstrated that it is possible for anybody to do whatever they want to do in terms of the Leaving Cert. It's not a set, that person's in this, they're only fighting for the top 30 mark. Like, my span is within this 30 mark. So you, especially with 2 months now, with a fire in your belly, you can basically, people watching this can adopt the principles that you adopted, that you've proven that have worked. And we'll talk about it in a sec, but you did mention stuff to do with mocks yesterday versus the Leaving Cert, and you've proven it worked versus, imagine if I wanted to become a marathon runner tomorrow, I'm looking at Mo Farah going, oh God, like that's, but we're like, I'm not saying average, but you are somebody who's actually made themselves versus being gifted to begin with in school. Like, obviously you're a very intelligent man, but you put these practices into place, which is the reason that so many people are fascinated with that video we put up before, and so many people were eager to get the answer, for you to answer questions, because you've recently been in that position.
Yeah, like I that's a good point. I think willpower studies have shown like predicts IQ by 2 to 1 in terms of academic performance.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not something that's often talked about, and it's important for students to remember that IQ is definitely not the be all and end all.
100%. You mentioned something, and I know you mentioned it yesterday, but there's going to be people watching this that weren't on the Instagram, so we're going to pretend that
that didn't happen. Yeah,
that you didn't talk about that, but you did mention this thing there about the learning to learn. Can you just explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So this is like an online course I did, and there's also it's by Barbara Oakley, who's one of the kind of leading authorities on metacognition and the neuroscience of learning, which is definitely, I think we should all learn how to learn. It's the ultimate kind of meta skill that will enable you to get all other skills. With there's an abundance of internet on the internet, as I was touching on yesterday. So learning really is like a superpower now. And being able to learn things quickly and deeply is really going to be what separates people, I think, in the future. So yeah, I think it's definitely a worthwhile investment to kind of understand the whole neuroscience behind learning. And there's a lot of like really, really low hanging fruit when it comes to what you can do to study more effectively. Because I did touch on yesterday the whole Cal Newport's deep or effective study equation, or work done equals time spent times intensity. And then like there are a few different ways to ratchet up intensity and the quality of your work. And these are those kind of principles taught in Learning How to Learn that help boost your study intensity. And yeah, there's some really good principles, because there are always going to be endless methods and tactics for hacking hacking learning, but principles are few and far between. And I think in learning techniques, there are really kind of 3 or 4 main ones. And they're kind of outlined in the book. The book Made to Stick, or Make It Stick. Sorry, Make It Stick.
No, I haven't read that one.
That's, I think it's basically spaced repetition, testing yourself, interleaving, and categorization. And they're basically like the 4 main learning principles. And once you have the principles down, you can invent your own tactics. Really, I think there's a quote from Harrington Emerson, says, as to methods, there may be a million and then some, but principles are few. The man who grasps principles can successfully select his own methods. The man who tries methods ignoring principles is sure to have trouble. So if you nail the principles of learning or of anything really, then you can implement your own methods from there. But the principles are important.
Yeah. So what was that book called? Make It Stick.
Make It Stick. Yeah, that would probably be the best book, as well as Mind for Numbers by Barbara Oakley. That for in terms of study and stuff. I know students might think that time is of the essence at the moment, but there's some really good YouTube summaries on it as well, from kind of study YouTubers and college YouTubers and that kind of thing. So you'll be able to find out about it on YouTube.
You were telling me that the Learning How to Learn course online was free, and you could do it in a day. Is that what you said to me?
Yeah, you could do it in a day. I'm not sure what the hours are like, but you can kind of skip through it liberally. But it's definitely worth doing. You took a Sunday off and raced through it.
Yeah.
It's go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just saying it's almost like if you're playing sport and you just took a course for a day that just made you way faster. Like obviously, everything you do from then is going to be unbelievable.
No, it's a good analogy. It's like I suppose if the whole of civilization was in one big race, and certain people were able to take courses or like think of them as drugs that made them like 10% faster, 20% faster, and then once they got there, that compounded, so they just kept stretching ahead. I suppose that's what we're in. Like we're in an intellectual race in terms of the leaving cert. So like if you can do something that's going to increase your pace by that much, certainly worth the investment.
Unbelievable. Now I know we mentioned this yesterday, but I think this is the thing that students really want to find. They want proof that Will Robbins is not an ultimate 100% genius from the off. Can you speak a little bit about remember your mock results versus the leaving cert, in particular maths, because that's what a lot of people are scared of.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about maths. My mocks were decent enough, similar enough to leaving bar maths. So maths was 40%. Sorry, my Christmas results actually that was I think around 540 or something like that. So I was able to get up from there, and just by spending a lot of time going over what went wrong.
Can I preface that? Can I just jump in there with that jump that you got there? That jump of 73 points. 73 points between that jump is huge, considering it was Christmas results in school, but also considering those points are the hardest ones to get on the leaving cert than any other gap of space of 70 points. Do you know what I mean? As in, like, to jump from 300.
Law of diminishing returns, and all that.
In terms of work is fairly straightforward. Like, just organize yourself a little bit. But that jump is huge. One of the biggest I've ever seen. Most meaningful, that I've ever seen. But sorry, could you continue on?
About the maths. Maths was 40%. So obviously not terrific. There were some like glaring gaps though that I was able to see, and like obviously I attacked that. And what I would say to people is, like, obviously if some dodgy results have come back in the mocks, that's probably a good thing. Like, you know where you have to work on. But kind of as an extension of that, try and test yourself more often. So it's not just like one huge failure in the mocks. If you can kind of test yourself every single day you're studying, like, instead of just highlighting material or rereading material, it's been shown in many studies that testing yourself is the most effective way to learn. So in a kind of like a mock like scenario, you can test yourself and see where the gaps in your knowledge are. Like, testing always reveals the gaps, and then, as if it was a bad mock result, like, go after the parts where you're weakest. It's not going to be comfortable, but the extra kind of hard work you have to do to try and dredge information up from the backlogs of your memory is exactly the kind of work that strengthens the connections between the different neurons in your brain.
Mm-hmm. I find that, like, students are unwilling to take tests because it actually tells them a true. They think, it kind of convince themselves in their brain. Let's just say they're a 70% student, and a test could be
Yeah,
the thing that tells them they're not. So they don't want to do that sort of stuff because they're afraid that everything being okay in their head being 70% will be taken away from them. Whereas
yeah,
really,
no,
sorry, go on.
it's the classic Carol Dweck growth mindset. You know, might speak to that a little bit, but basically, a growth mindset is someone who loves a challenge and is willing to fail and isn't kind of concerned about seeming smart or looking smart. And if they think a test is going to challenge them and maybe deprecate their self-image, they're willing to take it anyway, because they know ultimately it's going to cause them to improve. And even if you can just think of the leaving cert as the end thing, like, the more tests you do, the better your leaving cert's going to be. So it is kind of it's illogical to avoid tests. I know it's hard, but like, try and do them as much as possible.
Yeah, it'd be like if you were, I suppose, if you were avoiding doing fitness training before you went ahead and, I don't know, ran that marathon we talked about, avoiding training. It's going to hit you
Yeah,
in the actual marathon, the big one, the big smash. Versus
yeah,
if you actually took the little bit of uncomfort, or a little bit of discomfort, sorry, from there, and you took a little bit as you're going along training, well, that's actually going to help you perform better on the actual day. So would you prefer to feel uncomfortable at home in your room by yourself working stuff out, or would you prefer to feel uncomfortable in August when your results come out and you're like, oh, you know?
yeah. There's that saying, sweat more in peacetime, bleed less in wartime. I
Yeah.
think it's kind of apt here. It's like, I guess it's that kind of that silent risk that people are bad at judging,
Mm-hmm.
because they think, oh no, it's a risk to maybe do this big test or something. I don't know, but by not taking small risks every day or small challenges every day, it's kind of just you miss that kind of that exponential growth that you could be getting, and you're just kind of leveling out towards average. There's Abraham Maslow used to describe it as, like, if you can imagine you're, say, here if you can imagine an X and Y axis and you're at the origin, and like, every time you step forward, you can either, like, every time you face a moment of fear, you can either step forward towards fear and therefore towards greatness as well, or step backwards away from it. And like, towards fear is +1 and the other way is -1, and eventually, like, the difference between taking the +1 steps in each moment, there's like 500 million moments that you have in your lifetime. So the difference between the person who steps forward towards the fear each day is going to be huge, even by the end of a few days.
Yeah, I would agree. There's another idea I was thinking in my head, which was, it's not as elegant as your one there, but a friend of mine who's a teacher, he loved going on holidays. He loved going abroad. So what he used to do every week was, him and his girlfriend would put €50 in a jar every single week. And he basically said to me, I didn't notice that €50 was only a little bit, but it enabled me every single time we had a midterm to go on a really good holiday. because to him, like to working, €50 is a lot of money, but like to a working person, like €50, you know, they might spend in the pub or something at the weekend. But he made sure they put it in the jar every week, and he said the holiday felt free then by the time he got there. Versus if he
Yeah.
had to spend, I don't know, $3,000 on a holiday, it seems like a massive whack. And that's kind of what we were talking about there. I think a little bit.
Yeah. Save those dollars in your study account every day.
Yeah, that's it, mate. What I was thinking of doing, Will, was I was thinking of breaking this up into two parts. So that first part there, we started talking a little bit about ideas and stuff. But I really love the way you speak about motivation. So I was wondering, could we break it up into a second part here, so we could have two separate sections for people on this? Is that okay?
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this here, and I'll call you back. Is that okay?
Oh yeah, Grant.
Perfect. All right, Sam, mate.